Coming in at number 5, we've got Doris's Demon. Damn, Doris, where'd you get this demon? There are all sorts of different accounts as to how this possession went down, but if you take Doris and her children at their word, it's hard to ignore what happened. Back in the early 1970s, the home of Doris Beleth came under attack by a plethora of ghosts and demons. This seemingly average house in Culver County, California suddenly teemed with paranormal events, many of which traumatized poor Doris. A single mother taking care of 4 kids, Doris was having a good deal of trouble on her own. Add in a history of abusive and violent relationships between Doris, her parents, and partners, and you can see how life might have been tough. Doris claimed that she was being assaulted by the ghosts in her house, and this was corroborated by one of her children. They could remember hearing their mother being attacked and violated by these spirits and didn't know what to do about it. The kids also remember being attacked by invisible presences, scratching, pulling, biting, and slapping. Skeptics looking into the case point to her history of abuse and alcoholism as major factors in these events, saying she likely wasn't being attacked by ghosts, but instead in some sort of terrible fugue state. But when a team of paranormal investigators came in, they found some strange and compelling evidence. Unexplainable bruising all over Doris's body, ghost orbs throughout the house, and other possibly paranormal activity made it seem as though there could be real demons hanging around. However, Doris and her family did eventually leave, apparently taking these demons with them. Subsequent residents in the house did not report any such activity, and Doris claimed that these presences actually followed her after she left. All of these events were drawn upon by author Frank de Folita, who wrote a book called The Entity, and this tome would later be used as the basis for a feature film of the same name. Now, get this. During the filming of the movie, a young actor fell and broke his arm. He was playing the part of one of Doris's sons who had broken his arm in a similar manner while living at the house. They claimed they were thrown by some unseen entity, so maybe there's a connection here after all. Coming in at number 4, we've got the Changeling. There are many tales of demons and monsters throughout history. Folklore from all over features different entities meant to scare any who come across them. One particularly prevalent figure in such tales is that of the Changeling, an inhuman presence used to replace a human child. It's a very scary notion, don't you think? Your kid, who you're watching grow and change and become a fully developed person, gets replaced by something almost impossible to detect. What can you do at that point? This idea is explored in a bunch of different ways, from old fairy tales to particularly recent movies like The Hole in the Ground. But if we look back to the 80s, there's another tale of changelings that seems to be based on true events. A movie, The Changeling, was released and claimed to have been based on true events. Martin Scorsese lauded it as one of the scariest horror movies of all time. Russell Hunter, playwright and musician, had been living in the Henry Treat Rogers mansion in Denver, Colorado. While here, he discovered an abundance of creepy details. The cheap rent and exquisite architecture came at a cost, of course. During his stay, Hunter experienced plenty of paranormal happenings, from noises without obvious origin to poltergeist activity to, most interestingly, a secret room. Apparently, in this hidden chamber, Hunter found a diary penned by a young boy who was trapped there for an extended period of time. Through reading the diary and following some of the clues left behind, he ended up finding the remains of said young boy, who had seemingly been locked away by his parents. Tragic and terrifying for sure. Hunter then sought out a medium who came and investigated the mansion. Through this investigation, it was discovered that the spirit of the boy had remained in the house for almost a century and was behind much of the paranormal activity. Later, while the mansion was being bulldozed to make way for a high-rise, a bulldozer operator was killed in a freak accident. Could that have something to do with the mansion's history? Was the boy replaced by his family, doomed to rot within the walls of the mansion? Or was there a more supernatural replacement going on? Of course, the movie dramatizes a good deal of what happened, but the fact that it was based on the experiences of Hunter while he stayed at the mansion so rich in history is cause enough to be intrigued. He says that the hauntings did actually follow him even after the mansion was demolished. Coming in at number 3, we've got the Dybbuk. Recently, there's been a surprising amount of talk about Dybbuk boxes. For an ancient, cursed object, there sure is a lot of interest in 2021. A lot of this has to do with people supposedly purchasing mystery boxes off the dark web and then opening them on camera as a sort of spectacle. Of course, this has played up a fair bit to encourage plenty of views, so one can assume anything they're watching on the so-called dark web on YouTube is probably fake. But a recurring theme inside of these large mysterious crates is Dybbuk boxes, ancient wine boxes meant to seal away vicious and evil spirits. Of course, the best way to deal with something like that is just leave it well alone. Don't break the wax seal, but that's not going to consistently happen now, is it? They open the box and 2012's Raimi produced The Possession and come face to face with a malevolent spirit that wants to possess a child. Once that thing is open, there is no going back. Apparently, after they wrapped shooting, a mysterious fire broke out in the prop warehouse, burning everything to the ground. Sheesh. You can also look to Post Malone's recent experience with a Dybbuk box at Zach Bagans' Paranormal Museum, where he claims he's been haunted ever since. With all the attention this demonic item has been getting recently, one has to wonder about the veracity of it all, but maybe don't try to find out for yourself. Coming to, we've got Beleth, the King of Cats. What a fantastic title for a demon to have, right? Folks who like to stay right up to date on horror programming might recognize that name. Recently featured in Netflix's Marianne, Beleth could be a lot of things. If we look to compendiums of demonology, Beleth is known as a fallen angel, one who leads 85 legions of demons and is a mighty and terrible king. When summoned, he's very angry, and if you show any fear, he'll never respect you again. The actual King of Cats bit doesn't seem to be mentioned anywhere outside of the Netflix series, but if we take these traits as true, he does seem very cat-like. Side note, a bottle of wine might mellow him into compliance, which is nice to know. But yeah, Beleth is supposedly a summonable demon, and one who could work with you if you play your cards right. But like with any demon, you've got to be careful, lest you give up your soul to this otherworldly entity. And coming in at number 1, we've got a haunted doll. And this time, it's not Annabelle. I just figure we've got a very complete knowledge of that tale from the Warren archives. This haunted doll made waves back in 2013 as it flew in the face of the idea that haunted dolls are ancient and made of cracked porcelain. Yep, this haunted doll was made in the image of the one and only Ice Queen, Elsa. A family decided it was time to get rid of the doll and tossed it. However, soon after, it reappeared within their home. It was programmed to sing bits of the song Let It Go, but eventually it stopped doing so and would only speak in Spanish. Understandably freaked out, the family once again attempted to rid themselves of the toy, but it came back again, this time appearing in the backyard. It's a determined little bugger, eh? These days, it's strapped to the front of a friend's truck and it hasn't found a way to escape yet. But we'll see how this demonic doll develops over time. Now that you're aware of these real demons, are you going to be living your life more carefully? Or does the presence of paranormal power encourage you to throw caution to the wind? Either way, it's always fun to learn more about this kind of thing. Coming in at number 5, we've got Balor. When your people have an eternal, mythological, supernaturally powerful enemy, life can be pretty rough. Dealing with the leader of said eternal, mythological, supernatural group of enemies can also be very hard. That's Balor for ya. Leader of the Fomorians, a malevolent force beyond comprehension, this enormous eyeball has been described in myths and legends passed down from the first Celtic settlers. This demonic tribe constantly showed up, bringing the deadliest of natural forces along to cause doom and destruction throughout Ireland. Plenty of battles were fought between these demons and the folks who just wanted to keep existing, but the deadliest of all has to be Balor. A gigantic fiend with strength beyond measure, Balor was a sight to behold. However, you definitely didn't want to look at him. He had an enormous eyeball, rumored to be poisonous, that could turn the tide of any skirmish. It was so big, in fact, that he required a team of servants to manually open and close it. Anyone who he pointed said humongous eyeball at would perish, and this became a keystone weapon in the Fomorian arsenal. For ages, these demons dominated the Celtic settlers, forcing them back and preventing them from truly taking hold of the land. However, there was a prophecy that did not bode well for the demonic tribe. Apparently, Balor's grandson would someday strike him down and dethrone the Fomorians in one decisive blow. The one-eyed giant did everything he could to prevent this from happening, though. Hiding his daughter Ethlyn away to prevent her from ever bearing children, Balor was careful not to let any grandchildren make it onto the scene. However, a priestess managed to sneak a human hero into Ethlyn's quarters, and this man seduced the woman. This resulted in triplets, only one of which survived. And wouldn't you know it, this surviving sibling grew up to be the heroic Luch Lemfada. He was an ace with the good old slingshot and managed to get his granddad right in the eye. The bullseye was enough to down the legendary giant, forcing the rest of the Fomorians back into the sea, finally freeing the humans from the years of terror. I guess when you have one crazy weakness like that, you've got to be careful. We haven't heard much from the Fomorians since, so maybe they're waiting for another leader with a power as strong as a poisonous eye. In the meantime, folks seem to be doing alright over in Ireland. Coming in at number 4, we've got the Yaogwai. We'll travel from Ireland to China for our next famous group of demons. Also known as strange ghosts or strange devils, the Yaogwai were mythical demons who wanted nothing more than to be immortal and godlike. They strove for power and agelessness, but did so without considering the consequences of their actions. Firmly on the dark side of things, these demons did whatever they could to achieve their goals. By practicing Taoism, they acquired many of their powers, but disregarded the founding principles of balancing light and dark. It was all dark. In fact, the Yaoguai would often consume the life force of holy men to keep their search going. They take on many forms, often appearing as different types of animals. Regardless of what form they take though, their ultimate goal always seems to be deification. They can even shapeshift and assume the form of a human if they need to trick someone. There's a famous story called Journey to the West, which follows a holy man named Xuanzang. On his journey, he's pursued by a Yaoguai named Bai Gu Zhang. Multiple times throughout his pilgrimage, he's approached by this Yaoguai in different forms, sometimes as a little girl and other times as frail old men and women. Thankfully for the holy man, he was accompanied by the Monkey King, Sun Wukong, who would chase off the demon with the staff. Eventually, the demon did show its true form, a horrifying skeleton. The Monkey King was ready though and proved victorious in battle. Of course, this battle was won because Sun Wukong was a legendary warrior. Thankfully, average individuals could keep these demons away through more manageable means. According to some, Yaoguai are afraid of light, so having a torch on you or lighting off fireworks can scare them off. But if you ever find yourself without any source of light, which was especially common way back in the day, you're out of luck. Coming in at number 3, we have the Liak. Vampires are pretty freaky, right? Well, here's the deal. European vampires, while deadly and seductive, are probably the least terrifying imagining of a blood-sucking immortal. See, over in Bali, there is a late-night blood-sucking demon that would scare the crap out of any sort of lychee legend. The Liak, a deadly demon, spends most of its time appearing human. It'll walk and talk just like an average person in the daylight, causing folks to let their guard down. But when night falls, it undergoes a horrifying transformation. Its head will detach from its body, shedding the now inert skin and bones, while still holding onto its organs and entrails. This stream of guts then hangs down from the bottom of the head, giving it a truly grotesque appearance. I don't know about you, but if I ever saw a floating head trailing a whole body's worth of blood and guts behind, I might just lose my own head. The Liak will spend a lot of its time searching for blood, often ending up in graveyards looking for some of that red stuff to slurp up. However, like most folks, it does prefer its food fresh. If you leave an offering of blood outside your home, you might be spared. But if a Liak is really hungry, it might just head inside and snag some fresh blood from newborn infants and their mothers. That's about as fresh as you can get, right? Like vampires, these demons used to be humans in some way, shape, or form. Often those who practice dark magic would end up as a Liak. Plus, the victims might find themselves under the influence of this demon. There are a couple of ways to deal with it though. One is to destroy the body it leaves behind while floating around, and the second is to remove it from Bali. Apparently, if you force this demon to go live somewhere else, the evil will be unable to return. Not bad. Coming in number 2, we've got Ordog. Corrupting and collecting souls. What could be better, right? Well, if you were the shape-shifting Hungarian demon in control of the forces of evil, that would be the case. Ordog would spend most of its time in Pokol, or Hungarian hell. During his time down there, he took damned souls and constantly brewed them in a horrifying cauldron of heat and hatred. Sounds like a whole lot of fun, right? Well, as it turns out, folks don't like the idea of being tossed around in an inferno of souls deep underground, and as such, avoided going to Pokol. So Ordog, not wanting to run out of brewing materials, would return to Earth's surface in disguise, looking for souls to corrupt and bring down with him. He'd cast off his regular appearance of a horned, cloven-hoofed humanoid and instead don the visage of a fox or a dark-eyed shepherd. In these forms, he'd do what he could to trick people into performing evil deeds, thus punching their ticket to Ordog's cauldron. And coming in at number 1, we've got the Shedim. To cap off our list, we'll take a look at a set of demons that have been worshipped as gods too. That's right, one man's benevolent protector is another's terrifying demon. Originally seen by Mesopotamians as guardian spirits, these eagle-winged humanoids were interpreted as demons by Israelites. What were once protectors of cities and symbols of good luck were now hellish abominations, false idols, and symbols of destruction and human sacrifice. It's a hard pivot, don't you know? They possess statues and pretend to be gods, often encouraging folks that behold them to act out of turn. Where they came from is a story that doesn't seem to have any consistent basis. Some say they were unfinished creations forgotten by God, left to their own devices. Others say they were the demonic spawn of serpents. Regardless of where you say they come from though, you'd better be careful around them. The last thing anyone needs is to be sacrificed to a demon, you know? well, it could be good for some people. I've traveled all around the world to find these demons for you. Well, all around the World Wide Web. There's a lot of good stuff out there, eh? Coming in at number 5, we've got the Popobawa. Imagine this, you're walking around at night, living life like you normally do. Everything seems a-okay for the first little while. Then your spidey senses start tingling. Something is amiss. You look around, but you don't see anything. Must be your imagination, right? Wrong. You forgot to look above you, and now a bat-winged humanoid is descending upon you, planning on doing ungodly things. And we're not talking about Bruce Wayne after a long week of vigilantism. We're talking about the Tanzanian Night Devil. This thing is a local legend that has been discussed for years and searches for victims in the dark. Folks that live in areas where it has been sighted have to be on high alert at all times when walking alone at night. I know that's the unfortunate standard for women across the world, but the thing about this demon is that it seems to target men. So dudes, be on high alert. The Popobawa can take on many forms, although the two most common are human, bat, or a mix of the two. And it won't just beat you up, it's more like a dolphin in how it assaults people, and I'm not really going to go any deeper into that conversation. However, it is said that if you go around warning everyone about this creature after you've been attacked, it's less likely to return, although that might be an embarrassing conversation to have. Back in 2007, a rash of late-night assaults had people on high alert, and a lot of them blamed the Night Devil. Groups of men would wait outside homes all night, keeping a watchful eye out. Some even smeared their entire bodies with oil in the hopes that this would repel attacks. Depending on what the Popobawa is into, that might help or hurt. Coming at number 4, we've got the Baku. Bad dreams be gone. This is a Japanese demon said to go around hungering for the nightmares of slumbering children. Maybe adults too. Tales of this demon go way back, with instances of it being discovered in art dating back to the 14th century. I wonder if the era in which dreams take place changes the flavor. Apparently, if someone's having a bad dream, they can call upon the Baku to eat the dream, which allows them to return to sleep. However, if you call the Baku too often, it could end up badly for you. If the Baku makes a nice meal your nightmare but decides it's still hungry, it's not going to go looking for a different nightmare to consume. It'll stick around and start feasting on your hopes and dreams. The people whose ambitions are eaten by the Baku return to their daily lives without any sort of drive, becoming an empty shell of a person. Kinda reminds me of another dream-deleting substance that if used too much makes people kinda boring. The Baku has taken on many forms, but the most common description of it seems to line up pretty closely with a tapir. That long snout can slurp up nightmares no problem. In fact, this legend was the inspiration for a long-snouted Pokemon duo, Drowsy and Hypno. And it makes sense too. These two creepy creatures rely on sleep-inducing and dream-eating strategies to win battles. Add in the Pokédex entry that seems to imply that it stole away a child that it put to sleep, and you can see why folks fear these creatures that eat dreams. So the next time you're having trouble sleeping or constantly waking up in a cold sweat, just know that there could be a mystical demon waiting to make a meal of your brain power. Just don't let him take too much or you'll end up a husk of a human. Let's be real though, the past year did that to most of us already. Coming in number 3, girls in the bathroom. We're not leaving Japan quite yet. They've got such a unique roster of demons, it's hard to pick just one. Today we'll focus on the second of 2 and see where that takes us. So here's a good one, a demon that only visits people in the bathroom. I'm sure a lot of us have faced demons, both personal and otherwise, in public restrooms at one time or another. There are some things I've witnessed in these stalls that I just wish I could unsee, that's for sure. But this demon isn't smelly or overflowing. There are a few different versions of this demon, but it seems to be something that occurs in most Japanese schools. If you go to the 3rd stall in a 3rd floor bathroom and knock on it 3 times, you could find yourself face to face with an otherworldly presence. Sometimes the girl that shows up will simply want to chat or maybe play a game. However, there's always the chance that the entity that shows up wants to devour you or drag you to hell. Some might pull you down the toilet straight to the underworld. Others could eat you up on the spot, no hesitation. So if you're curious and looking for a relatively easy to call demon, this is the one for you. Just be aware that it could go very badly. Usually girls in bathrooms are so supportive too. Coming in at number 2, Gottlieben Dietus. I hope I said that right, we'll see. What if your parents named you that? It's like they're asking to have to perform an exorcism on you at some point. Like, German names are lovely, yes, but damn, Gottlieben Dietus. Dittus? Ditus? Oh boy. Way back in 1842, some of Gottlieb's neighbors noticed that she was not quite right. She lived in a small village, so word got around quick. The 28-year-old was going around telling everyone that her house was haunted, and soon after started entering trance-like states pretty often. German villagers in the 19th century don't tend to react well to folks going into trances, so they got a pastor involved, and that's where things got really bad. It seems like demons aren't super happy when religious dudes try to exorcise them, so Gottlieb got violent and desperate. The exorcisms that followed went on for 2 full years. She was restrained for most of the time and somehow managed to vomit broken glass and nails all throughout. How did these substances end up in her stomach? Who knows? What we do know is that in the end, Gottlieb was cleansed of her demonic presence. But after all that, I'd say keeping the demon within might actually be worth it if you can avoid puking up carpentry supplies. Coming in at number 1, we've got the Gary House Demon. Gary, Indiana. This is a modern day possession story for the ages. I wouldn't be surprised if a feature film gets greenlit based on this tale. In fact, Zach Bagans already made a feature-length documentary concerning the events, and after all was said and done, he purchased the house and demolished it. Talk about thorough. So the story goes something like this. Latoya Ammons and her 3 children moved into a rental house in Gary back in November of 2011. Soon after they settled in, strange things started happening. Even though it was a chilly December, black flies kept swarming their porch regardless of how many they killed. Footsteps could be heard throughout the house at night, and doors and cupboards opened when nobody was around. It didn't take long for whatever demon was causing these poltergeisty activities to get to the kids either. The kids started acting strangely, claiming that they knew what death felt like, attacking each other, and at one point even hovering a few feet above their bed while sleeping. These activities were reported to the police, who felt that the children were not being adequately cared for. The kids were taken into police custody, and Ammons was given 6 months to get herself together. She got a new job, rented a new home, and eventually got her kids back. Since then, they've experienced no new demonic presences, so whatever was going on was happening because of that house in Gary. Jeez, maybe it's a good thing Baggins leveled it. Do you feel any new presences around you? Eyes burning into the back of your neck? Maybe a chilly feeling sweeping through your house? Just hope that the more you learn about demons, the less likely you are to be targeted. So, what do you think about the list? Do you agree with my picks? What's the scariest demon you've ever heard about? Coming in at number 5, we've got a bunch of dudes' ex-wives and girlfriends. That's right. Whether you're a divorced dad wearing Oakleys or a man who never learned how to communicate or apologize, there is one thing that strikes fear into the hearts of dudes across the world. Women who left them. Just take a look at the comments of our last video. Yikes! It's okay, guys. You're allowed to be sad about love lost. Sorry, I had to make the joke. Now for our real number 5. Coming at number 5 for real, Shemhazai. Also known as Samyaza, Aza, and Uza, this is a fallen angel that once led the Watchers. If you've kept up to date on our series of videos about angels, you might recognize that group of heavenly heretics. The Watchers was an order of angels who rebelled against God at one point to head down to Earth and live a life of hedonistic excess. They lusted after human women and made them bear their children, who eventually turned into gigantic monstrosities that needed to be washed away by the flood described in the tale of Noah's Ark. So yeah, the leader of this group would be pretty nasty. I said they were angels, but let's be real. Fallen angels become devils or demons more often than not. So Shemhazai decided it was time to head down to Earth for a massive feed and seed fest, and consulted with the rest of the Watchers in order to make it happen. Shemhazai said that they would be the one to take all the blame if something were to go wrong, and thus all of the Watchers committed to go in on this ludicrous plan together. For a while, they seduced women away from their human tribes and engaged in some less than savory acts of desire. Animals were involved at some point, and once you're there, there's really no going back. This resulted in some skirmishes between the human tribes and the Watchers, which, of course, the angels won. So Shemhazai descended from heaven, seduced some women, wiped out tribes of men, and got busy with a bunch of farm animals. What a demon. Worst of all, the Watchers, led by Shemhazai, taught the humans forbidden knowledge, like some sort of eldritch abomination. Yog-Sothoth who. Of course, a demon so well known and influential will show up a bunch in media too, so if you want some really freaky renditions of this particular demon, check out their appearances in games like Final Fantasy and Shin Megami Tensei. Coming in at number 4, sleep paralysis demons. A great deal of demons out there were probably inspired by people's interactions with these horrifying visages. Thanks to modern science, we have a bit of a better understanding of what's going on here, but that doesn't make these kinds of experiences any less scary. Some folks, particularly those who sleep on their backs and watch a lot of scary YouTube videos, describe times that they've been startled awake in the middle of the night to find that they cannot move. They're conscious and totally aware of the surroundings, but can't control their bodies in the slightest. That's scary on its own, but a lot of the time that's just the beginning. Folks caught up in sleep paralysis often see a horrid figure looming over them, watching. In some cases, this figure is the one holding them down, preventing them from getting up and running away. These demons can take many forms, from shadowy humanoids with no discernible features to grotesque, gory hellions with fire for eyes. Most of the time, they're simply there to scare their victims. Folks who see them are scared stiff and can't get away, but are ultimately not in much danger. However, some tales claim that these demons will scratch and claw at their prey, causing wounds that can't be avoided. In some cultures, the demons are even said to suffocate people in their sleep or kidnap and eat misbehaving children. The fact that there is a sleep paralysis demon for pretty much every culture is freaky and points towards it being a legitimate concern and a universal one at that, but that could also just have to do with human physiology. Folks who study this phenomenon know it as hypnagogic or hypnopompic hallucination. This is when you wake up during the dream phase of sleeping. While dreaming, your brain turns off signals to the rest of your body to prevent you from acting out the dream. Usually, this is for the best and will keep you from falling out of bed and down the stairs. However, if you somehow manage to wake up during this stage and your brain fails to restart those signals, you'll be stuck in a dreamlike state and be totally unable to move. Folks who are under a lot of stress, can't get enough sleep, drink a lot of alcohol, or experience PTSD are more likely to run into sleep paralysis and the demons that accompany it. So, like I said before, folks who watch a lot of scary YouTube videos. Coming in at number 3, Nasu. This one's name is pretty close to the first half of the word nauseous, which is what you're gonna be if you ever run into it. With its origins in Zoroastrianism, Nasu is the demon of decay and death. See, death on its own, not that bad, pretty common, but decay? That stuff is nasty. And Nasu isn't just gonna wait around for people to start to decay. This demon likes to get a head start on it. She often turns into a fly and crawls into dead bodies to really get that rot going. Unfortunately, Nasu doesn't stick strictly to corpses. If someone wasn't careful while handling a dead body, she could figure out a way to transfer from the cadaver to the live individual. Sometimes she'd crawl into their mouth, other times she'd pick some less lovely orifices. From there, the decay would begin in the still living individual, causing them much pain and discomfort. The thing is, the person would then be uncleansable. They'd have to live out the rest of their lives with this rot festering inside of them. In order to prevent this from spreading further, they'd be separated from the rest of society until they're elderly. And at that point, they'd get decapitated. If nothing else, Nasu reminds us to be as sanitary as possible while dealing with dead things. Coming in at number 2, we've got Mara. Basically the embodiment of everything Buddhists strive to avoid, Mara is evil. Big evil. Evil with a capital E. Deception, trickery, and dishonesty all wrapped up into one terrifying being. All Mara wants to do is sway people away from the path of enlightenment, which is, quite frankly, just terrible. There are all sorts of tales of them attempting to distract Gautama Buddha during his quest, from insanity like summoning hellish beasts to more simple distractions like telling him bad news about his family. What a jerk. Then there's the time that Mara attempted to seduce Buddha by sending their 3 beautiful daughters to put on a show. Thankfully, it didn't work on him. However, I think it would work on pretty much anyone else. I often feel the influence of Mara whenever I'm trying to do work and my phone beckons to me with promises of funny tweets and TikToks. Unfortunately, I am not as good at resisting temptation as Buddha. Terrifying. And finally, at number 1, we've got Asmodeus. As things stand right now, there aren't too many demons who go on wicked killing sprees. Like, they might tempt someone to perform acts of violence or convince someone to submit to them for all eternity in exchange for some temporary power, but in terms of ripping guts from a poor young sap, it doesn't happen too often. Asmodeus is a demon who will do exactly that. Rip and tear. He is said to be the worst of the demons and loves to end lives at every opportunity. A particularly popular method of killing he enacts is to wait for a young couple to be married, then they head home and prepare to consummate their marriage. At the last possible moment, he pops up and kills the husband. right in front of the young wife. He was known to do this for ages, once killing 7 newlywed husbands of the same woman. Every time she tried to actually get married, he'd just show up and end it all. Goodness gracious. Apparently he is kind of easy to stop though, as this woman's 8th husband threw some junk on a fire that made him flee. So keep those candles lit during your honeymoon, eh? Again, I'm not so sure about the actual veracity of these demons, but the things they represent definitely cause a lot of people a lot of pain. So do your best to resist the demons in your life and be the best you can be. That'll be $19.99 for the inspirational speech, alright?